I think it's time we all started asking public health officials and our politicians a whole lot more questions about why they are making the decisions they're making during the pandemic, why they think we should head in the direction that they want us to head in. Because quite frankly, a lot of what we're hearing right now doesn't necessarily seem to be based on the evidence. The data, it doesn't necessarily seem to be justified. What am I referring to? Primarily this idea of second lockdowns. You gotta shut her all down. We're hearing this from some health authorities, some health officials, and some politicians. The idea that in Ontario, for instance, they need to head back into stage 2, which means shut down all indoor dining, shut down the libraries, bizarrely, and bring in enhanced restrictions for a whole bunch of other non-essential services. Now, this is going to be pretty catastrophic for the economy. It's going to cause way more problems in people's lives, but they say, well, we got to do it because, well, hashtag we're all in this together, and, well, cases are rising and hospitalizations, they're not rising the same as they were before, but they're ticking up a little bit, so that's what we have to do. And look, back in March and April, regular folks said, yeah, what is this crazy virus from Wuhan? We don't know. We got to take a few weeks to grab our bearings. So by all means, lock her all down. And here's your various CERB and all your other economic supports. And we were all more or less on board with that. But now a whole lot of people are starting to say, well, hold on a second. I'm not so sure about the thinking behind all of this. And I don't just mean the people who are calling this whole thing a hoax and marching in the streets and so forth. More and more regular people, nonpartisan individuals, just average, decent folks are going, this doesn't necessarily add up for us right now. Different folks have different disagreements with different elements out there and so forth, but there's more of a public pushback starting right now. People are less willing to just take what, say, Premier Doug Ford in Ontario has to say as a fait accompli. And I think that's a good thing. Because when you turn around and say, well, we probably have to shut down the gyms or restrict them more, well, why? Well, because they're indoor settings and it spreads when people are in indoor settings. Okay, yeah, I know, we kind of get that, but does the data show that gyms are causing a problem? Oh, well, I don't know, not really. We don't actually have data specifically about gyms. Well, what are you talking about? Oh, well, because in Ontario, the database we use, there's not actually a little box where you can tick off gym or not. Yeah, that's actually a real thing. I'm not making that up, folks. A number of health officials have actually acknowledged across the province that the spreadsheet they're using is incomplete. There are a number of categories they don't have, but they wish they did. That's a problem, both the problem of just managing their data and the fact that people are saying things like shut down the gyms, but without knowing whether or not gyms are actually causing cases to flare up. That's just one example I'm giving. You can use it with restaurants and various other places. The bottom line is there's a lot of information deficit going on in the specifics of all of this, but officials seem all too happy to say, oh, well, just shut this part down, just shut that down. And I understand why back in March and April, the people said, okay, we'll give it a shot. Now, that doesn't cut it. They want a much higher threshold explanation for why businesses they like, activities they like are put on hold, why their livelihood should be further restricted. And they are right to demand that. Lockdowns, shutdowns, that is a wild thing to do. And until just recently, 6 months ago, it was unprecedented in modern human history. So darn right, people need to keep asking more questions and pushing back and not be so willing to accept things right now, because this is no longer a question that can only be answered by niche medical experts or what have you. This is a whole of society conversation. We're all in it, and don't let them tell you that your voice doesn't matter.